This video is sponsored by June's Journey. Hello, welcome back to Salvaged by K. Scott. I am so excited to get started on making over this 6-drawer dresser that I found out for trash back in the fall. It's been sitting at the bottom of a huge stack of furniture that we saved for what feels like forever, but now I'm down to the last few pieces, which means there's probably going to be a big furniture thrifting video coming your way soon. But before that happens, I'm going to be giving this piece a pretty beginner-friendly, modernizing makeover so someone can put it back to use in their home. June's Journey is a fun hidden object mystery game that's set in the glamorous 1920s with a very diverse cast of characters. I started playing this over the holidays and now I find myself taking a little escape in it before I head out to the workshop for the day, and it's also a really great way to pass the time between coats of paint. Each new scene takes you further through a thrilling murder mystery story that has the main character, June Parker, on a quest to solve the murder of her sister and uncover some interesting family secrets. June also has a knack for getting into tricky situations and solving problems, just like I have to do on each one of my own projects. It's a little bit challenging at times, but in a way that's still really relaxing and just allows me to use my sense of observation and keep my mind fresh. There's also tons of creative inspiration with bold, bright colors, and you know I am always checking out the furnishings in the background of every scene. You can download June's Journey for free by clicking the link in the description. June's Journey is available on Android and iOS mobile devices as well as on PC through Facebook Games. This dresser is covered in dust from the shop here, but it's also got a bunch of stickers on it and whatever dirt was on the surface before we picked it up. So I'm just going to start pulling out the drawers, removing what's left of the hardware, and prying off these decorative panels on all of the drawer fronts. These are just tacked on with a few little nails, so I used my flathead screwdriver to get underneath a little bit and pry them up, and then I hammered the remaining nails back through the drawer fronts. Then it was easy to just grab them and pull them out with some needle nose pliers. Once I had the drawers sorted, I vacuumed up all of the dust bunnies and cleaned everything with some simple green. Any cleaner with a good degreasing agent in it will work for prep cleaning on furniture. The main goal here for painting is to remove any grease or oils that might be on the surfaces from furniture polishes or just grubby handprints so that the new finish can make a really good bond. It's also nice to just have fresh, clean drawers for the new owner. While I was washing things down, I also decided to unscrew this base just so that I can work on it a little bit easier. This is solid wood, but it has the same faux wood print that's on the rest of the laminate pieces of the dresser. So I want to strip this back and show off the real wood grain that is underneath this. It just had a few screws holding it onto the bottom of the dresser and it was really easy to come off. So now my drawer fronts have all these little nail holes in them, and I'm going to be adding some new hardware to this as well. So I grabbed my wood filler to fix things up. I chose to use this Varathane brand today. This is a 2-part epoxy filler, just like Bondo, and it dries to a super hard finish in about 15 minutes. It comes in a base putty that gets mixed with a separate cream hardener that activates it. I popped a little piece of painter's tape on the inside of the larger holes so that I can fill them all the way through, but I won't lose any filler out the backside. And then I mixed up my putty in a couple of small batches. Because it starts to firm up so quickly, if you mix too much at once, you might have it start to seize up on you before you're finished filling things in. It's also really stinky, so you need to be in a well-ventilated space, and it is sticky, so I would recommend using gloves and also mixing it on something that you can toss away. While that's set up, I started working on stripping the base. I put some 80 grit sandpaper onto my little Surf Prep sander and started removing all of this finish. You definitely do not need a super fancy sander to do this. A $40 hardware store brand sander will work just fine. To get all of the finish off of the base took me about 20 minutes, and then I switched my paper to a finer 120 grit to smooth out the rough wood. And since the legs were already really loose, I just unbolted them from the frame just to make everything a little bit easier to sand. By then, my filler was nicely set, so I went back to the 80 grit to remove the excess and get everything nice and flush. Then back to the 180 grit for scuffing up the rest of the laminate surfaces on this dresser's body. I just let the sander move across here, going nice and slowly so that it can scratch up this slick plasticky surface, but also that it can just smooth out any of the scratches or raised bubble areas that are really common on these types of furniture. When all the sanding was done, I grabbed a very barely damp cloth to pick up any of the dust that was left behind, and then I got myself ready to prime. I'm using a shellac-based primer called Bin today, but a slightly more affordable and water-based primer that I also really like is Kills Restoration. And I'm priming this dresser for a few different reasons. I want to make sure that I seal up all of the exposed wood on the drawer fronts so that the natural oils or tannins that are in there don't leach up and stain my new paint. I also want to seal up the super porous and more absorbent exposed parts of the hardboard on the top. Wherever I had sanded through the damage that I had to smooth out, if I don't seal that up, those spots will absorb the paint more than the material around them that still has the finish intact, and they could also raise up or bubble again. And lastly, this primer is going to give me just a little extra layer of adhesion power. Since this shellac primer is really nasty stuff to clean up, it requires ammonia, which is no fun. I like to line my tray with some tin foil, and I use just a really cheap microfiber roller to apply it. It dries really quickly, so as soon as I was done the first coat, I just went back to where I started and rolled on the second. I left the primer to dry all the way for about 30 minutes, and then I grabbed some fine sandpaper. This is about a 400 grit, and just very lightly sanded all of the surfaces to remove any of the orange peel texture or little fluffy bits left behind by the cheap roller. Now I am ready for paint. I've chosen this creamy cashmere color from Fusion Mineral Paint, and I'm going to be applying it with a Stylmeister Microfelt roller cover this time. These are a little more on the pricey side, but they're honestly the best roller cover that I have ever tried. They give such a noticeably smoother finish, and you can toss them right into your washing machine to clean them up, and they just seem to get better and better after every wash. But if you don't want to spend the few extra bucks on these, I would look in your paint section for a velour roller instead. Again, I just poured out some paint into a foil-lined tray, loaded up my roller, and got to work. Fusion is an acrylic resin paint that has really great adhesion, coverage, and once it's cured, it's also UV resistant and waterproof, so you can even use this stuff outside. It does start to dry very quickly, so I try not to overwork it too much. Once I get it onto the surface, I go back for one smooth out really quickly and then just leave it alone to dry. If you keep messing with it, you can definitely start to build up some texture. I grabbed a smaller zebra square brush to get into the few tighter areas where the roller wouldn't fit, and let my first coat dry for 2 hours before coming right back for a second coat. If you want, you can sand lightly in between coats with that same kind of 400 grit sandpaper. It's not necessary for adhesion or anything, but it will help keep things a little bit smoother. I ended up needing to do 3 coats to get solid coverage, which is really typical for a light color like this in any kind of paint. And while my last coat of paint dried, I went back to working on the base. These are the new knobs that I want to use on here. I think I picked this setup probably about a year ago now at HomeSense for $9.99. And I want to see if I can match the more yellow maple base wood to the slightly darker and grayer wood of the knobs. I decided the best way to do that was going to be with a paint wash. So I grabbed another fusion color that I have that's a little bit darker beige with a green undertone called Algonquin. I mixed about 1 part of Algonquin paint with 2 parts of water and then brushed that over all of the wood parts. I just let it soak into the wood for a few seconds and then I wiped it back with a cloth, just like you do with any traditional wood stain. And although it's really subtle, you can definitely see the difference it makes. I do also want to say that you do not need a specialty furniture paint to do a paint wash like this. You could totally go to the craft store and grab one of those little bottles of acrylic paint for $2 or $3 in the color that you want and water it down just as easily. Once I had the base sorted out and my paint was dry, I was ready to add some top coat to everything. Fusion does have a built-in top coat already, but since this isn't a piece that I'll be keeping, and especially since it's such a light color that will show marks, I want to make sure that it's as protected and wipeable as I can. So I'm going to put 2 coats of this tough coat on it. This is just more of the same acrylic resin that's already in the paint. If I'm not spraying, I like to apply my top coats with a painting sponge or a foam brush. So I mixed up the poly to make sure everything was incorporated and then squeezed out some onto the lid of a takeout container. And then I just used the sponge to wipe the tough coat over all of the surfaces. And just like the paint, you want to get it on, smooth it out quickly, and then leave it alone to level out. As tempting as it can be to want to go over it again and again, I promise you will just make a mess. It's better to get it on and leave it. You do need to be a little bit extra careful and double check edges or anywhere where it might want to pool up because drips and puddles just don't look good. I did the exact same process over the wooden base and then closed up my container for 2 hours while I waited for things to dry. After applying my second coat of this, all that was left to do was put everything back together. I put a little piece of painter's tape in the center of each drawer and then marked the exact center just by drawing a line from corner to corner. Then I drilled a new hole for my wood poles. I bolted the legs back onto the base frame and brought everything inside. With the base reattached and the drawers popped back in, my new little dresser is ready to go. I hope you found some inspiration for a furniture makeover of your own in this video. Make sure that you find the link to June's Journey in the description box of this video to check out that game. Please make sure that you are subscribed for tons of fresh furniture flips, and you can watch some more oldies but goodies here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again, and I will catch you all next time.